I think we've got to get like a better way of us just starting these chat ones, because the problem is obviously hello. We've been chatting for what? We came on like 40 minutes ago.
Yeah, I've run out of things to talk about.
We've just been chatting, and but yeah, that's the problem. By the time we get to the actual recording, we're like, cool, we've done it all. Should we rehash those conversations we just had for 40 minutes?
Yeah, not all of them.
No, no, definitely not that one. Ooh,
how have you been anyway, Tom? What have you been up to?
Do you know what? I am really good.
We're getting into
really good.
We're getting into silly season.
Yes,
can't quite hear the bells, but there is a kind of. It has been snowing today.
I'm glad you brought up the holiday season, because I would like to talk about a very famous drinks brand who have brought out their new Christmas advert. Now, obviously, this Christmas advert, for a lot of people growing up, I've had this conversation with a lot of people, is that when they would see that advert, the one with the trucks going through the forest all lighting up and the bells and, the catchy song. I'm sure by now you've figured out who I'm talking about, but for legal reasons, I'm not going to talk about it.
Holidays are on the way. Holidays are on the way.
That's the one. That's
something like that, isn't it?
It's so catchy when you sing it. really brings it home. But the Christmas advert for 2024.
Yeah.
Which I will say, there's some good adverts this year. Have you seen the Waitrose one?
I'm gonna admit something here. I don't own a TV.
Neither do I.
But I haven't. I don't see adverts.
Actually, that's not true. I do own a TV. No. But do you not watch? I like adverts. I really do. I enjoy adverts. So when the Christmas stuff comes,
I just watch the advert channel.
No. I'll look them up on YouTube, and I will say the Waitrose one is fantastic. Okay. I think the Pepsi one's brilliant as well, but I'm not at all biased. Actually, I do think the Pepsi one's great, but I was also involved in that campaign. So the other one, the one that I'm going to be talking about, it's a very iconic brand, and it's a very iconic specific advert that they release every year, and it has a lot of warming feelings, I think, and a lot of feelings that people have got, because as soon as they see that advert, they feel like they're all right to start getting excited about Christmas. They can start,
I find it strange, because obviously the association people have with that brand in Christmas is obviously the advert is one of the iconic adverts that come around every year, but I can categorically say I've never drunk that drink at Christmas because it's Christmas. I'm not like, I really fancy a glass of that.
No, I drink kind of like the drinks that I wouldn't buy all the time.
Neat vodka.
I don't neat vodka. Yeah, neat gin. But I don't really do that sort of thing at Christmas. But it is funny how people have an affinity with it. But I think for
drinks.
No, the adverts that then basically people think that it's that time of year, and I think people have got really excited by it, and then they've released this advert this year, and it is this year fully AI generated, and it's uncomfortable watching. There's a 15-second clip, which is none of it feels right. And I'm sure this is maybe me as someone who creates content, saying, oh, this feels a bit off. But there's, the models, for example, you see their hands for a split second and the hands don't look right. Yeah. When they're smiling, their face is moving, but their teeth in their jaw aren't quite keeping up. So there's something off in pretty much every scene that just makes me feel really uncomfortable about it, and the comments are exclusively really harsh. I don't think there's proper nasty comments. There is not a single thing
redeeming feature. What's strange is that they've commissioned this, because I've seen adverts recently for a big well-known jeans brand, but it wasn't actually from the brand itself. It had been created by somebody who then had to put, oh, this isn't so and so, by the way, this is just something I've come up with. I think brands must have to be more now, now more than ever, super aware of what's being done in their name and being put out there.
I mean, that is an interesting thing, isn't it?
To really to have massive reputational damage to be putting this stuff out there and people be thinking it's done by the brand, but actually it's not done by them. But apparently in this case it was actually commissioned by the brand itself, which seems in hindsight slightly foolhardy, but
it does. I just feel that if you're doing this and if you're using this, it just tell me why, right? Because a crew of talented people could have done this advert infinitely better.
But this is the whole thing with AI. Like it's at this stage where everyone's excited about it. It's a buzz thing. Everyone's talking about it, and you see this when technology comes along. That's kind of, I know it's a bit of a leap, but say look at drones. Like there was a period when drones started to be used that you'd see them everywhere. You'd see so much photography that was drone photography.
Mm-hmm.
You'd see top down. It was such a novelty, and then it became kind of just a bit done. And then you don't see it nearly as much anymore. You see it used in a far more kind of elegant way than it first was. But originally there was like a glut of drone photography.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with AI. I think it will go through a stage where there's this kind of glut of companies going, oh, we've got to do something AI because it's trendy and it's what people are talking about and it's what people expect. And I think it will take a while for it to actually become used in a more nuanced way. And I mean, talking about AI, one thing I saw today, which was interesting, was AI being used as a face randomizer. And obviously, there's lots of questions that need to be asked about that, but it potentially has got interesting uses. For example, I mean, again, you'd have to look into the ethics of this, but if you had an image that you couldn't source the names of the people in and you wanted to be able to use it for an advertising thing, could you, in theory, face randomize the subjects so that they're not recognizable people? It's really interesting to know where the law lies on this and where the law will lie, because that potentially opens up a whole swathe of previously unlicensed or unlicensable stock images that couldn't be used for commercial advertising because they couldn't necessarily get the model releases to be used. So there needs to be, and that means potential lost revenue for models as well. Like if you can...
Well, I think it would basically mean a complete eradication of money, like revenue streams for models at all, wouldn't it? And modeling agencies. If you could just have get anyone to sit in and do that or whatever, and then you just replace the face.
Well, I mean, they're already talking about this with acting, aren't they? And with film, being able to kind of...
Well, it was the big thing it was the big thing in the strike, wasn't it? Is that people were worried that they would take their likeness and then just run with it forever.
Yeah.
But then also, I think
for one, I'm quite looking forward to seeing Humphrey Bogart in the next Fast and Furious. So,
do you mean Humphrey Go-Kart?
That's
the best I could come up with. Sorry. It's I don't know. It's very depressing when you see this sort of thing. If we compare this to the other Christmas adverts, there's a real nice feeling about some of them. And they're all done with full crews and full actors, and everyone's being paid properly. And it's a good. There's a lot of good advertising out there, and then this lands, and you go, just makes you just go, my God, like, guys, come on.
Yeah.
Like, who's reacting well to this? If you are looking at the comments on that video, and then you're going, well, I think that's worked. I think we're definitely going to see an uptick in sales. I think they might be a little bit mistaken. Are people going to boycott it? No, probably not. But will it boost sales? I very much doubt it. It did give me a good chuckle when one of the trucks was moving, but the wheels weren't. And also there was also I did fear at one point because there's two trucks are going in a straight line, and one seems to be skidding like sideways, and I was like, oh well, that's good for a laugh.
Yeah, that's
But at
what
the
that
same
advert always missed, was a jackknifing lorry.
exactly the peril.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to have seen them put it in there. But you know, it's I don't know, just the whole thing when I saw it this morning, and I was just like, that's sad. That is sad on so many levels, because you would assume a brand that big and iconic would be more aware of the nostalgia attached to that series of adverts, and they would protect that as much as they could. And then to release this and just the floodgates of abuse to open.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think any brand wants that. You know, it's not like all press is good press. This is bad.
I think fundamentally there's something quite crass about AI, if I may say so. I think it's partly because and I wonder if that will change, whether or not people, because as it gets better, people will not necessarily be aware that what they're looking at is AI. But at the moment, it feels quite crass, and the part of the fact that makes it feel crass is the fact that there are people that could be doing that job that aren't getting that work at a time when the industry is struggling in general. That seems a bit kind of mean-spirited, which is, funnily enough, not what Christmas is about.
No, I always think on things like that, I'm like, you know, you look at it on the grand scheme and you go, well, there's a DOP, a director, there's a photographer in there, and there's that kind of like group. But then there's the guys who are running the catering trucks.
Yeah.
There are the people who are manning the car parks. There are the runners. You know, there's so many members of crew that go into all these productions. So it's not just, you know, well, the photographer hasn't got any money. Well, actually, no, the photographer obviously doesn't have any money, but at the same time, neither do the rest of the 300 people that were going to be involved in that job.
Yeah.
You know, it's I don't know. I kind of came away from it going, that's a shame on so many levels.
Yeah. I mean, saying that, weren't the last couple of them mainly CGI? But I guess there would have been companies working on that.
That's it. The problem is there's CGI artists. You know, there's modelers and all sorts. You know, it's.
I do kind of feel like, take me back to the days when, I mean, I love seeing the behind the scenes on movies when, you know, like Blade Runner, or I saw behind the scenes on Speed the other day, which is, you know, in my head is showing my age here, is a more modern film, but actually what, mid-90s. But yeah, there was an amazing set that they built for the final scene with the bus, and you know, scale model. And when I was a kid, that was my dream job. I was like, wow, if I could be paid to kind of make tiny versions of things and painting them all day, that would be amazing.
That would be great. Have you seen The Movies That Made Us? Sorry, side note.
No.
The Movies That Made Us on Netflix is an amazing series taking you behind the scenes. I sound like the press release.
Yeah, you
taking
do.
you behind the scenes of your favourite movies.
In a world.
I mean, in a world. But it's great. It's, you know, it tells the stories of how the film Home Alone got made, and, you know, how the house was actually built inside a gymnasium, for example.
Well, I mean, actually, interesting point to bring back the model making to photography. For those who aren't familiar with Dan Winter's work or have read his book, The Road to Seeing, he talks a lot in that about how his first love was model making, inspired by Star Wars, and he started to work on one of the kind of production companies that worked on making models as a kid. And actually now when you see a lot of the sets that he used to build and still does, he used a lot of that model making kind of skill set to design part of the sets for his shoots. So it's fascinating, really, to see how that skill, which seems very different and very of a different genre, can actually start to influence a way a photographer might work.
No, absolutely. I love Dan's work. We should try and get him on.
We should.
That'd be good. I'll email him. Anyway, so I think that's just done. I think it's just really sad. But on a plus note, now the Christmas ads are coming out, it means we are approaching Black Friday.
Yes. Okay.
Which
So
this year, if people who regularly listen have known the ups and downs I've had with equipment, both you and I, sensibly, rather than buy various things throughout the year, we actually have shopping lists that we add to through the year. So in case we get to Black Friday, find a good deal on them, and maybe there's stuff that we want but don't necessarily need, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Otherwise, it gets bought beforehand, doesn't it? If you need
used,
you have to buy it.
Exactly. But my list, well, we're literally just talking off air, and I opened my list and I went, oh, there's nothing on it.
Yeah.
That's it. Literally nothing. So I have got no plans for Black Friday. I'm going to renew my Adobe subscription because they do a very good Black Friday deal. And I will probably pick up some stuff on Cyber Monday, as in new licenses for things that maybe are out of date and stuff like that. And other than that, no. Sorry, I've bored myself.
I've got one thing on my list, and I don't really need it, which is why I haven't bought it. But you always bang on about it, so I might look. If it's in the Black Friday sales, then I might buy one.
Are you just about to say the magic words?
Stream Deck.
Oh, Greg.
See, my problem is I know that I'd get it and I'd probably program 3 keys and then never use it.
Well, they do one with 6 keys. So you could just get the small one. The small one is currently 61 quid, but right. It's not really on the there's no Black obviously on Amazon it's not Black Friday yet. But the one I've got is the Stream Deck XL.
Of course.
Naturally. It has 32
the
buttons
XL
on.
version.
A Mega XL version.
90 buttons.
But I would argue that the Stream Deck, there's over the years, there's been a few bits of kit that I've bought that have been just so useful.
Yeah.
The Stream Deck has been one of them. I use that all the time.
Okay.
All the time. One of my favorite features about it, and I don't know if this is going to swing you, is, say, for example, right now, it is just a regular Stream Deck with just the regular buttons, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as I open Capture One, boom, it changes to the Capture One profile. Boom, swap into Photoshop, and then it has all the Photoshop profile that I've already set up. And so and the same for Resolve. So whatever app that I'm in, I have custom Stream Deck profiles set for each app, and then they automatically switch. That is worth its weight in gold. And then if you couple it with Keyboard Maestro, I mean, you can do, for anyone who doesn't know what Keyboard Maestro is, it's my second favorite thing ever. It's you can basically program your computer to do most things. Again, sorry, I'm boring. I'm boring myself talking about that, and I love this stuff, so I can only imagine what it's like to listen to. But Keyboard Maestro is amazing because you can program keystrokes, you can program things. So say, for example, if you are forever finding yourself doing repetitive tasks, like if you are hitting V and then typing the tag in Gmail, for example, and then if you're finding yourself doing that a lot, well, you could program Keyboard Maestro to hit V, type in, whatever the tag is you want to assign it, and then hit enter and then file it. You can do all of this sort of stuff, and you can, my new favorite thing is getting it to run Apple scripts or run things at login.
Right.
So Stream Deck, for some reason, my Stream Deck will not launch at login. And when it does launch at login, I can't close the app, which means it doesn't automatically switch between the profiles when I'm in different apps. So running it in Keyboard Maestro, I created a macro that is triggered at login, which opens the Stream Deck app, hits Command W to close it down, but still keep it active in the background, and then boom, it just works now.
What's it like? Give me some more examples of your best kind of shortcuts that you use most frequently.
So I tell you what I do. I go one better than that, Greg. So in Capture One, for example, I have I'll bring it over so I can see. So I have the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 selects, which I just find easier while I'm I'm navigating on the keys with my right hand. I just find it easier to be able to have the ratings and then all the color tags underneath as well.
Right.
So it's not a case of me having to do keyboard shortcuts. I can actually just hit that. It then does the keyboard shortcut and will, label a file as pink or green or 5 or whatever.
And I'm guessing you can have the buttons with the coloured backgrounds on them, so you know what colours you.
So it's mega obvious, and you can just glance at it with your peripheral. You don't even need to pay much attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
The nice thing about doing it this way is over time your Stream Deck will just become like an extension of you. So you basically it becomes second knowledge. It becomes
second nature.
Second nature. There we go. To be able to just hit that one and rate that and do all that. And for example, here I've pinned on the right hand side my play, rewind, forward, and music button. So from anywhere in the OS, whatever profile I'm in, I can get the music playing, open Spotify, and do all of that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have got buttons put on that my children like to play with. So I put their favorite characters from their TV shows behind them with no action. So when they come into the office and work with me, they can hit the buttons and it doesn't do anything.
They work with you. Are you making them do your accounts again?
They're very good. There's been a couple of errors. But overall, and for example, I have a working preview workflow. So whenever I'm working on an image,
Mm-hmm.
I will export it to a location. Oh my god! Sorry, I am not getting any sleep at the minute. It's a lot. But I export a low res to the working preview folder, and then I am able to pull up that folder from the Stream Deck, right? And then I also have copy settings, paste settings, styles location, and then I'm able to go into my my library, and I'm able to copy and paste all of that, and then I hit another button, and it will take me into where I store those presets on my cloud server, and then I'm able to just keep them regularly backed up and up to date. So if ever I have a problem or Capture, I have to suddenly get a new laptop or anything like that, I can just bring over my develop presets, my metadata presets, my all my styles, and I can bring them over in one copy and paste from my cloud drive over onto
the new computer.
That.
Yeah.
And it means also it's very easy to keep them up to date between the machines, because obviously I have a Ultra Studio in the office and then the MacBook Pro on the location. You can change. I like changing the color of the background of the viewer, so I have a line of them set up for that. And yeah, that's how I run it in Capture. In Photoshop, for example, I'm able to hit the buttons, and they will then bring up. They'll run either different actions, or they will do various things. So they will run AppleScript, for example. So when I'm working on 10 files, I have a pre-made TIFF file with all the layers. We've touched about this before on the show. I have that TIFF file with all the pre-made layers for my retouch already in it. Well, I've created an AppleScript that will open that, copy all of those layers minus the background layer onto all the open images, flash up an alert saying it's done, boom, done. So I now no longer have to manually click and drag. And when I literally open all the images, hit the button on the Stream Deck, boom, it's done. That saves me, over the course of a year, that'll save me hours of clicking and dragging.
Yeah.
I have it set to various blend if modes. So I've got blend if highlights, and then I've got the different strengths of blend if. So I can just hit literally blend if 1, 2, and 3, and then that starts with finite amount of highlight, edging more towards the midtones.
Yeah.
And same for the shadow detail. What else? I have zoom. So I have zoom fit, zoom 100, zoom 300. I have the mixer brush tool. I have a skin tone equalizer, overlay on, overlay off for some of my slightly more advanced layers. And then in my frequency separation, I've got select low frequency, select high frequency, and then obviously dodge and burn, object removal, rename the layer. There's basically select subject. So part of my AppleScript option is that it also will run through a series of masking things.
How do you go about naming the button when it's kind of like a complicated action? Because they're so small, aren't they? That if you write something on there, is it hard to read?
You can get. I've got apply P/S preset layers. You just shorten it down. And you won't have that many that aren't the things that what they are. My one is apply PS preset, and then that's the first step in my retouch, and then everything else is affecting individual layers. So it's not that hard.
Okay.
But for me, I think the Stream Deck could be one of the best things I ever bought. I bought it on a whim, and it's been amazing.
Okay.
Well, do you know what else I bought as a whim? Years and years ago, 2008 maybe. I don't know when Zacuto started, but it was basically I'd had a couple of drinks at the photography show back when I used to drink. I used to drink at things like shows and stuff like that. Now no one can afford it, obviously, because it's about 15 quid a pint. But I'd had a couple of drinks with a friend at lunch, and I was like, do you know what? I've not bought anything today. I'm going to go and find the silliest thing, and I'm going to buy it. As long as it's not more than, I don't know, 100 quid, I think it'll be fun. And I just went to find a gadget, right? Walked up to the Flash Center stand.
Yeah.
Back when they used to be at the show. This was back when it was focused on imaging. And I was like, what's that? That looks wild. And it was a Zacuto Z Finder.
Okay.
And it was a loop for the back of your screen.
Yeah,
right?
I remember them.
And I'd never seen anything like it. And it was before we had flippy screens. It was before screens were massively bright. I was back on like 2-inch screens on the back of cameras. And I was like, nah, I'll buy it because it looks cool. And also, if you flip it round and hold it up to your teeth, you can make your teeth look really big through it.
That's a reason alone to buy it. Yep.
Exactly. And I've bought it, and I still have it. And I would argue that it's my longest kept bit of kit and my most used bit of kit.
Right.
Whenever I'm not tethering, I will never, ever use the EVF. I will always reference the image on the back of the screen of the camera using that loop. And it's one of the best things ever. And if you ever want to pick one up, you can pick them up for pennies now on eBay. Like 20 quid, I think they sell for. But it's honestly one of the best things I ever bought was this loop.
Is it magnetic? Connects
Nope.
onto the back, or is it? No. Okay.
Nope. There's literally nothing fancy. Mine, I'm sure they do. I think they did like stick-on frames and everything for it. But mine is the most basic.
Oh, so you just have it as a loop around your neck on a lanyard, and then
I literally, exactly. And I
think we're just showing our age there, Tom.
I know, sorry. But I have the top right, because one of my favorite things about mirrorless is that obviously you can program any button to anything, right? So on the top right-hand button on the back, which is the little square, I think it's focus point selector traditionally. Okay. I have that set to alternate between the EVF and the rear screen.
Right.
So I only ever shoot using the EVF, and then I have the screen turned off all the time until I hit the button, turn it on, look at it through the loop, turn the EVF back on and get back to shooting. And it's also because it magnifies the image. If you're working with someone and you're not tethering, it's nice to be able to show them a bigger image, and you can just show them that.
Nice. Well, I'm going to have to get work out, because that's one of my pet hates is shooting when you're in an EVF and a eye sensor, and you kind of like it's flicking between the two. Or
I turn it off.
You're using the EVF, but then you bring the camera in close to you, and it senses your chest or something and thinks it's your face, so it turns on the EVF rather than the back screen, and you're just like,
I think the EVF. I think the sensor is if you're just pootling around taking pictures, it's a nice idea. But if you're doing it professionally and you're doing things like exactly what you've just said, like for example with the loop, you can't use it with the sensor because as soon as you put the loop on the rear screen, the sensor goes, oh,
Yeah.
The camera's up to his face.
Yeah.
So then it kills the screen. So that's why I have it manually set to that button, because then you are able to force it to whichever one you actually want it to do. And it's I will say it's a great tip.
Yeah.
If I do say so myself.
I'm gonna action that. Definitely.
But is there anything that you're looking to pick up in the Black Friday sales?
Apart from that, no. I mean, I'm always kind of open to bags and stuff. I'm trying to buy less kit, to be honest. I'm trying to think what I've used recently. I'm tempted to get some of the cheaper. I bought the Canon 35 and the Canon 50, the RF cheaper lenses, not the cheap lenses because they're not cheap, but the they're kind of more basic models, and I'm looking potentially to get the 28 as well, the 2.8, which is like a pancake lens. Did
you buy the red ring ones, the new ones, the VCM, or just the standard? Are they 1.8 or 1.4?
No, they're the standard. So I've got the standard 35 and the standard 50.
Are they 1.8 or are they 1.4? Because I'm surprised you'd buy the 50.
Well, only because of the size of it compared to the 1.2 or whatever the the L lenses, which I also own. But for travel work, having the lighter lenses, I actually just think is a benefit, and probably
that 35 though. I use it all the time on my R6, and I love it. It's great.
It's a good lens. Good lens.
Is the 50 as good?
I think so. I think it's fine. Yeah, I think it's fine. I don't have any qualms with it.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just because I tend to shoot my travel stories or features where I'm traveling with my Fujis for the weight factor. So yeah, I'd be looking to move. I'd quite like to shoot those things with a Canon, but I just need lighter glass. But the other thing that I'm looking forward to is the new 7200 2.8 Canon that's soon to be. Well, it's been released, but I think it's kind of not in stock anywhere. But that's their non-physically zooming one.
I would imagine that'll be a very popular lens because, like you say, it doesn't extend. I was always frustrated by lenses that would do
extending lenses, because I mean they feel so much more vulnerable. They feel like they're going to suck in dust and all sorts of grit and dirt. And there's I mean, from a purely aesthetic point of view, they just look a bit naff.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, bluntly. But the new one is the same form factor as my 24-105, the lens that I now shoot everything on.
Yeah,
and I love it. It's a brilliant form factor. I love the extra buttons on it. I love the touch ring. You know, they're phenomenal.
I am coming round to that lens. I'd be keen to try that one, the 24-105, at some point.
Borrow it.
I will for a year.
Sure.
I think it would be. Yeah, I can totally understand why you love using that if you're going to be locked down or, shooting locked on a tripod. It's with the kind of tripod mount on the lens. It's a no-brainer.
It's a dream. Well, did I tell you what I got the other week?
No.
Did I tell you I bought my dream tripod?
No. Mister, I don't buy anything anymore.
Well, no. No, so I sold a couple of bits of kit.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And I love. Now, do you know what I say when I say the M535s?
No.
They're a set of Manfrotto video legs. They're carbon fiber.
Okay.
And they have a 75mm bowl.
Right, okay, yeah.
Make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the 75
level the camera in the bowl type thing.
And quickly. And not only that, I then got the 415 geared head.
Right. Okay.
Because I'd been finding on my commercial jobs that actually a ball head is sort of useless because people are like, oh, what if we just shift it slightly to the left and I'd let go of the ball head and the camera would be like, whang.
Yeah.
So I thought, actually, if I get a geared head and do smaller adjustments,
Mm-hmm.
and this one's clever because you can rotate the cuff and then do a big adjustment, lock it back in, and then do a smaller adjustment. And I've always wanted it.
Which head is that? The Manfrotto?
Manfrotto 415 geared.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. 410, sorry, not 415.
410 geared head. Okay.
Yeah, it's the 410, and it's great. And I have the conversion plate on it by a company in America that converts it to Arca Swiss away from the proprietary Manfrotto mount, and it's a really solid thing. Really.
So that then sits on a bowl bottom, does it?
It sits on a bowl adapter,
right?
And then underneath. So now I'm able to do all sorts of angle adjustments. It just means that I don't really have to change the height of the legs. Right, I can just set the legs out however is going to be the most stable, and then adjust everything on the head and the bowl to get the perfect angle. I'm sure it's overkill, but I bought the 535 legs years ago. Absolutely loved them, and then, as with a lot of my kit, sold them. But I, for the life of me, cannot remember why. I think it's because I wasn't really using tripods as much, maybe, and it was an expensive thing to own. But now I'm using tripods more and more, and legitimately so. I bought it all used. So, and actually for I think it ended up costing like 300 quid for the set. It really wasn't very expensive. I got myself some bargains. So anyway, I can't quite remember why I brought that up. I think that's maybe why I'm not really that fussed about Black Friday, is that I bought that a couple of weeks ago and I feel very spoiled with myself. So
you weren't tempted? Was that something you needed? You couldn't have waited to Black Friday?
I broke my tripod.
Right.
So I undid it, and the leg extended all the way out and then dropped off, and then it basically wouldn't kind of go back on properly. So that had to go back in and get serviced.
That's not great,
no, it's not ideal. And I thought, actually, I'd always run quite cheap tripods because they weren't that important to me. But now, as it was becoming more important, and there's it is kind of a good thing because there's a like a big metal loop on the tripod itself, which you can just hang a sandbag onto it. So that thing where obviously you've had a tripod on set and you've marked it out, don't touch the tripod can't be touched, and someone knocks into it. If you haven't weighed it down, it can move 3.5 feet, depending on how hard people walk into it. But when you've got a heavy sandbag on it, if someone does accidentally catch it, chances are it won't move that much. So there are some legitimate reasons. I understand it might sound like I've been a bit frivolous, but I did feel like at the time there was like a genuine need. And I am slimming down some of the other kit, so there is now room in the bag for that.
Okay, I'll let you off.
Thanks.
I will let you off.
Did I get away with it?
I don't think there's much else at the moment that I'm looking to purchase. I did see the other day that somebody bought out the new, I'm not in the market for it, but the new Fuji film camera looks quite interesting.
The GFX Eterna.
Yeah, but I also saw that somebody bought out what they call a cineback for the XH2, which is what I use for filming, the XH2S Fuji.
Is this rig? What are they called? Rig something?
It is by, what's the guy's name?
Rig Pro, Caleb Pike.
Caleb bought it out, and it looks slightly unnecessary in some ways, but I do like the idea when it extends the form factor of the back of the camera and adds in space where you can kind of have your D-taps, outlets, and all that stuff, and a massive cheese plate on top and at the bottom. Should
we quickly explain what we're talking about? Because it's a bit of a hard thing to to describe. Basically, the form factor of a lot of small mirrorless cameras isn't necessarily the most ideal thing to rig. So what Caleb, and I think it's Camera Foundry, is that right?
Yeah, that's where you can find.
So Camera Foundry, they have released a couple of packs, and you are able to basically box your camera out with a top plate, a side plate, a master kill switch. So you are able to plug everything into a DTAP distributor, and then you're able to flick the switch to turn everything on and off from the V-lock. So you're not having to turn all your things off. And it also allows the screen on the back of the camera to flip out and is then being able to used as a screen on the side of the camera. It basically improves the form factor and makes the smaller cameras act like a much bigger, not cine camera, but like things like the Blackmagic, than the bigger Sonys and stuff like that. It basically just, I think, improves the handling of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it looks good. It ships from the US though, so you probably get spiked with custom fees, I imagine. But it looks well made and well thought out. I just something that would be nice to have, but don't need it at the moment. But I'm sure it could be useful for some people who are doing, a lot with those smaller form factor cameras.
But this is it. I think now it's kind of like a few years ago, I'd be like, yeah, I'd buy that. Why not? Way. And now I'm like, nope, don't need it. It's cool. And I think there's a lot of people now who are kind of using that sort of logic. Sensible people, obviously. Smart people, I would say. But it's amazing what happens when work changes and industries kind of go through like a certain time of uncertainty and stuff like that. I'm sure, again, the knock-on is that camera resellers and camera companies and stuff like that also feel that, because people are less likely to drop, 400 quid on that or 700 quid on something else.
Well, interestingly, there's been a bit of concern. I mean, obviously with the Fuji announcement of this GFX Turner video camera, should I say? Video? Was it video?
I don't know. What's the right term? Yeah, I'm sure it's a video camera.
There was a little bit of concern that it would, because Fujifilm are not a massive company compared to some of the camera manufacturers out there. That would they be able to keep up with their would it divert their attention maybe away from some of the cameras that people love? I mean, I know that they have been developing their cine range, especially with the lenses. So it does make sense for them to be doing this and to be utilizing that beautiful sensor. But sorry, my light's just gone out. Don't know why. It's plugged in.
Fuji are listening.
Yeah, just left in the dark. So it's interesting to. I don't know why they would. Oh, I don't know why they do that. If it is going to divert their attention away from. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, Fuji, please, can you bring out the X Pro 4? I've been waiting bloody ages for that camera, and it's not even rumored yet. That it is not even like a potential. Oh, it's going to be out in 2026 or something at the moment.
How old's the X Pro 3 though?
A couple of years. Like, it is due an upgrade, but I think it's. I just love the form factor of those rangefinder cameras so much. I say rangefinder in inverted commas. They're not rangefinders, but the way that they're laid out in the same way that rangefinders are laid out, with where the viewfinder is, etc. Mm-hmm. I much prefer working that way. Much prefer over a traditional kind of DSLR, mirrorless, whatever camera. And I shot with, did a travel assignment about at the end of the summer, and I was traveling with the Fuji X-H2. A Leica M10P and the Fuji X Pro 2. So 3 different camera systems, because I'm such an indecisive bastard.
Keeping it light, were you?
And the thing is, the reality is, you then come to do the processing and you're working on 3 different camera sensors. Mm-hmm. And you're like, how do I keep the consistency across all of these? And so this is always the issue when you've got kind of different form factors with cameras. And I always had that when I had the X Pro versus, which is more of a rangefinder versus the SLR style, because I liked having both with me on a job because they serve different purposes. But you really need them to have the same sensor. Otherwise, when you come to processing, trying to match everything up and keep that look and feel consistent across all of the images is a nightmare. And I know that's quite a niche problem for people that are doing more kind of story-based features where you're going to be getting lots of different images over a number of days rather than, say, a portrait shoot that all takes place in one block of time.
But it's niche. It's niche, I think, as far as stills maybe go, but it's not niche in the moving image world. And then in places like in editing software like Resolve, you have color space transform. So a CST you can apply to Sony footage and get the CST to go from S-Log3 to Canon Cinema gamut. So if you're trying to match footage, you're able to CST various footage from one camera to the color space of another, so it acts the same way when you are grading it. It might obviously look slightly different color wise than that, but it's
I mean, that's the thing. Even if you kind of go to a linear gradient on your kind of raw output, the difference between an X Pro 2 sensor and, which is how many years old now, probably maybe 10 years old, versus a modern day sensor is so vastly different that it's a real kind of slog to try and get them to match up in any way, which is frustrating. So I much prefer using that, as I said, that form factor of camera and shooting in that way, but just need a more up-to-date version.
And there's no rumors at all?
I don't think so, no. There's all sorts of other rumors of fixed lens medium format cameras. There's a split like half frame camera supposedly in the works. There's even talk of a panoramic, because Fuji years ago bought out their answer to the Hasselblad X-Band.
Let's talk about this then, because have you seen Jeff Bridges' project?
I haven't seen it. I've heard about it, and I haven't actually looked it up. But
I think he's bringing the wide lux back.
Yeah, so he's a massive proponent of the original wide lux, and if you ever used to go, I mean, why would you? But I found out this because I actually photographed Jeff Bridges years ago for the Tron film, the second one that came out. Right. And I wish I'd known it at the time that he was a wide lux shooter, because it would have been such a good icebreaker. It was one of those classic kind of press junkets where you go in and you've got 10 minutes in a hotel room with them, and they'd put us in this hideous, like, fake Italian villa hotel room. And I had to... It was for some magazine. They wanted this award in the picture, but they wanted it in a way where it didn't look like it was too obvious. So you kind of then had to secrete this object in the frame and create a scene, all with your kind of 10-minute time frame.
Yep.
Quite stressful.
But if you'd done that and got the wide lux out, boom, putty in your hands.
I mean, he was an absolute consummate professional anyway, because he just kind of assumed like this kind of almost yogi position, like, what do you want from me? Like, he's exactly as you'd imagine he would be. But he, big proponent of the wide lux, used to shoot all these books of his films behind the scenes with the wide lux, and very good photographer with it, because it's a tricky camera to use. And so there used to be a section on his website that was all about the wide lux. And all about kind of his tips on using it and the niggles and things and ways to get around it. It was like hidden away on jeffbridges.com. So I haven't seen the updated one, but we'll link to it.
Nice.
That's something for me to go off and salivate over now.
Yeah, it looks fun. I might even get one.
Right. We have, I have to dash now, unfortunately. And
I've got a burning smell in the office. So now actually feels like a fairly decent time to cut this one. Because I think something's just gone. But I don't know what it is. And I'm still here, so it can't be that important.
Tom, your chair's on fire.
So yeah, well, listen, thank you very much for listening.
We'll be back next week with a guest.
Yes, we will. We were meant to be this week with a guest, but I had a scheduling issue with a shoot, and then he had the flu.
Yes.
So, but we will be back next week.
Keep you guest guessing until next time.
It's going to be a good one.
All right. Ta-ta.